Have you ever hit a creative roadblock that sprouted new, exciting pathways? A few weeks ago, I sat down to film another studio chat, and upon editing, I discovered that my settings were all off, resulting in a very poor video quality. However, what was worse was that I was so bored watching myself in that traditional show and tell format. It felt like an absolute chore to even edit the footage, and I was so uninspired watching the way I was presenting everything. It also felt like a big task to present an entire month's worth of work in one sitting, and I would often forget a lot of details that I wanted to cover with each project. That's how I got the idea to start this new series, Fiber Stories, which will be a bit more of a journal style video showing you my knitting, spinning, sewing, and weaving, but in more of a real-time format. By changing my perspective and format, I have found new excitement and inspiration in the way I share with all of you wonderful people. So without further ado, let's learn more about what I'm currently working on. This knit right here has been my main priority for the last few weeks, and it'll continue to be until when it's essentially done. And that's because it is a test knit for Kelsey Designs, who is also the dyer behind Primrose Yarn Co. And I believe it's due like June 15th or something like that. So I'm kind of getting down to the wire here with working on it, but I'm having a lot of fun making it. So it is a triangle shaped shawl, and I'll try to show you. It's kind of hard because my cables aren't quite long enough, but here is the gist of it. So this right here is the longest part of the triangle. You can see how it kind of folds behind there. It's part brioche, part garter stitch, and as you can see here, it's brioche on one side, garter on the other side, and then with each section it kind of swaps positions. So then brioche, garter, brioche, garter. I was in the mood to knit a brioche style shawl, and then when I found that Kelsey was putting out a test call for this one, I was really excited to apply because it was just right up the alley of something that I wanted to make, specifically with or using handspun yarn, because I think it just looks so beautiful and squishy in the brioche stitch. Speaking of the yarn, I am using two different types of yarns in this pattern. The first one is the Replay Sport from Primrose Yarn Co, as you can see here. And this is in the colorway Pale Pink. It is a unique fiber content in that it is using 100% upcycled wool, and I believe it is mill spun in a mill that is close to her as well. And I think the fact that it is mill spun really gives it a beautiful, heathery, almost tweedy look to the yarn. And I'll go ahead and show you it up close here. So you can see all of the dimension that is in that yarn. And that is the case for all of the colorways on this base. Which, by the way, there are so many beautiful colors to choose from. It was really hard to make a final decision. And I think she comes out with new colors all the time. She doesn't really keep the same ones in the shop, if I understand correctly. And so that's a fun way to kind of just breathe life over and over again into a really cool base. So yeah, I really like the color of this pink. I am not a huge pink person, or it's not something that I've traditionally gravitated towards in the past. However, I do think it looks good with like my whole complexion, and I think it just adds a different exciting touch to what I already have in my wardrobe. And then the other yarn that I'm knitting this up with is actually using my own hand spun, and I'll kind of give you a close-up here. This is what's left of the ball currently. And this is also fiber from Primrose as well. It is dyed on the Grey Corriedale base, and it is the Crystalize colorway. So she has a few different bases that this is dyed on, and I think the Grey Corriedale definitely gives it a much more moody vibe. Here is the actual package it comes in, and I'll go ahead and take out the braid so you can see all of the beautiful colors that are in it. So here is what the braid looks like. I really was just drawn to these very moody autumny colors because I envisioned myself wearing this in autumn winter time. When spun up, these colors definitely dilute a little bit. I should mention that I spun it to be a 2-ply yarn. My goal was to make it a sport weight, but it kind of came out to be maybe more of a DK weight. And the reason for that is because I've been trying to do long draw on my wheel, and it just creates a much fluffier yarn, which I do really like the look of. So you can kind of compare how the colors just blend a little bit more in the final form, and that's why I decided to pair it with a bright pink color, because it'll create a little more contrast than if I were to go with like a forest green or a gray. I thought the colors would blend a little too much together. As a result, here is a close-up. This is actually the back side of the shawl, but you can see how much the pink stands out against the moodier handspun yarn. And then I'll show you the front side here too. Overall, adding the pink to the shawl gives it a, slight more pink hue, which I think is really nice. And the fact that it has all of these different earth tone colors in it, I think it's gonna just go so well with so many things in my wardrobe, especially in the fall time. I really like to wear the fall colors. So yeah, I think this will just be a nice cozy wrap to wear when I need a little bit of extra warmth. I'm currently working on the 4th and final repeat of the shawl, but of course this is the repeat that has the most stitches on it because it started from the bottom and then it only gets bigger. So this repeat is taking a little bit longer, but at this point I just feel like I'm just flowing right through it. It's pretty mindless too. It's been very nice TV knitting because, like I mentioned, half of it is garter stitch, and then I feel like I have brioche stitch down pretty well where I don't really have to think too hard about it either. So yeah, I guess we'll see if I finish it in time. Once I am finished with the repeat, I just have to do like a little garter edge similar to what you see here. And then of course blocking, which I'm very excited to block this out and really see how much more the yarn blooms. Specifically for the edges here, you can kind of see maybe that there's a little bit of gapping going on from the edge to the brioche. And I hope that blocking kind of blooms that yarn out a bit more and kind of fills in those gaps. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm having fun making this and I'm excited to wear it. Every spring, summer, and fall, I spend a significant amount of time on my front porch with my dogs. We enjoy bird watching, having a beverage while chatting with friends and family, and of course, knitting and spinning yarn. I will say though, I feel a bit exposed, not just to the sun during the afternoon, but also to people walking by, and specifically my neighbor who has his bedroom window right next to me, and we can see each other when he goes to bed early around 7:30 because he's 97 years old. One day, I came up with the idea of creating a quilt top curtain that I can open and close as I please. I've been finding a lot of inspiration online with curtains made out of quilts and even shower curtains too. I've also been wanting to dive down the quilting road, and I thought, what a great opportunity to get started with it. I'm fully aware that this curtain will be facing a lot of the elements like moisture, sun bleach, and so on, so I won't be too concerned about being a beginner and making it absolutely perfect. I was recently perusing through my local Goodwill, as one does, and I came across these two quilting books from Better Homes and Gardens. So this first one is America's Heritage Quilts here, and then the second one is American Patchwork and Quilting. And these books were made in the early 90s, I believe. This one was made in 1985. And then this one here was made in 1991. And these books have patterns of quilts that were designed all throughout the 20th century. And there is so much inspiration in here. And I think since it's more focused on heritage quilts and more traditional patterns, it's very timeless, and there's so many beautiful quilts in here, and naturally I want to make every single one of them. But I want to just show you a few examples of some that are really inspiring to me. So there's this one right here, which has all of this patchwork, and I would absolutely love to sew a garment and then attach some of that patchwork on top of it to give it just like a really personalized, cool feel. And I think there's actually a design in here that shows a little girl wearing a garment with that applied patchwork to it. So let me see if I can find it. So you can see on her sweater right there how there's like an applied patchwork, and how cool would that be to knit a sweater and then apply a little patch on it? I don't know. I was very inspired by these books, to say the least. And I found a pattern that I thought would work perfect for the outdoor curtain. And that is this pattern right here, which is called the Laurel Wreath pattern. And this particular pattern was designed in 1936, which I think is just super cool. It's sweet too because in the book it gives like a whole backstory to all of the quilt patterns and kind of what a prominent effect they had on the quilting world during that time. I really liked that pattern, and I thought it would be easy enough to work on. So that's exactly what I did. I started making it. And the first one that I made actually turned out surprisingly well, being that it was my first quilt block, and it's this one right here. I am using scrappy fabric from all of the past garments that I've made, so at the same time as this being a handmade quilt, it also just serves a lot of memories because it's just, I have all of these clothing items made out of this fabric too, and I just think that's an extra special touch with it. So the first block right here turned out very well. However, the second block, not so much, which is weird that I kind of regressed, but the first thing you probably can notice is the difference in size. I was using a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this particular one, and then I think I completely spaced that when it came to making the second one because I used like a 1/2 inch seam allowance for this one, which is why it's so much smaller, making this particular piece unusable, but I think it'd be cute to apply on like a little project bag that I can make, or like a little tote bag on the front would be super cute too. So I'm definitely going to use this for something. But the other thing that made this one really difficult was this fabric right here. This light pink fabric with the pinstriping. It's already kind of tough as it is because all of the garments that I make for myself are pretty much just linen fabric. So I'm sewing a quilt top with linen fabric, which isn't the easiest to sew with. It definitely probably would have been smart for me to use quilter's cotton for my first like legit project, but I like the challenge. Why not? It's turning out fine. But this particular fabric here isn't linen. I think it's like a poly blend of some kind, but it's just too flimsy and too drapey that it's just really hard to construct clean, crisp lines. So like you can kind of see here how it's not perfectly like straight on there, and I had a hard time with it. So I decided going forward I wasn't going to include that fabric in it because it's just more complicated than it needs to be. So then I moved on to the third quilt block, I suppose. I kind of wanted to remake this one just using the right seam allowance, and I wanted to switch up the order that I had the colors in a little bit as well. So I made this one right here. So I went with the same kind of feel for it, but I swapped the placement of the brown. I just thought it made a nicer, more striking design than this one. And I just used this fabric here to replace the pink flimsy fabric. And I am really happy with this particular block. This is definitely the best one that I've made so far, I think. And just look at how crisp those lines are. At least to me they are. So very happy with that one. And then I made a third one going off of the same kind of color scheme here. And one thing that I was really proud of is, see this middle striping bit right here? Those are actually 4 different pieces. It's not just one square piece, and I sewed the block on top of it. And it looks like the stripes just line up perfectly, creating a seamless look. But yeah, there are 4 different pieces. So I was also pretty excited with how that one turned out. I've kind of cycled through multiple different ideas on how I'm going to construct this curtain. At first I was just going to make a quilt top on one side, and then on the back side I have this old white linen bed sheet that I'm not using anymore, and I was just gonna do a solid bed sheet on the interior of the porch. But I realized that I'm putting all this work into it. I want to also be able to see the quilt pattern as I'm sitting on the inside and not just have it on the outside for everybody else to see. So I think I'm gonna do 2 quilt tops back to back, and I'm not gonna quilt them together because I don't wanna put any batting in between anyways. I don't want it to trap extra moisture that doesn't need to be trapped. So the plan is to make 2 quilt tops back to back, and then I'll just add little tabs at the top that I can just hang on top of a curtain rod that I'll install on the interior side of the porch. Now the next thing I'm trying to decide is if I want to make it all the same quilt blocks on both sides, or if I want to do one quilt pattern on one side and then switch it up and do a different one on the inside. And that way I can kind of switch them around too as I feel, to kind of mix up the look. I don't know. I still have quite a bit of blocks to make just for the one side, so I'll have some time to really think it out, but I think that might be my plan for now. And also just so I don't get bored making the same quilt block over and over and over again for like 2 quilts worth essentially. I also want to make it a goal to at least finish one side of the quilt top for this summer, just to really push myself. I don't know, it's kind of hard because I've been wanting to make so many sewn garments too, but there's something about There's just like less pressure making a quilt because I sit down and my goal is to just make one block. And that includes cutting all of the pieces. But it's also nice being able to cut the pieces right at the tabletop. Unlike a garment, I have to crawl around on the floor and cut out big pieces. And this is just a lot less, and I just do one block at a time, and it's been going super well. So I don't know, we'll see if I am able to have this completed by the end of summer or not, or maybe even before the end of summer, so I can actually enjoy it for what it's supposed to be used for.
Hello, Ramona. I can't shake the simplest feeling beyond the ghost. We stand on the opposite shore. Hello, Ramona. I reach through mysterious ceilings, my only hope. I look for the things I don't know. I stand alone. Show me where the ending goes. Honest, honestly don't. I should be the last to know. We're all in this. I stand alone. Show me where the ending goes. Honest, honestly don't. I should be the last to know. Hello, Ramona. I mistook you for a dream. The engine glows, and I guess you always seem to know. Hello, Ramona. I push back the serious feeling. The end's unknown. To get back the life I used to know.
I finished with a whole week left to go. I originally thought this pattern test was due June 15th, but I think it's actually like the end of June, which is super awesome because for spinning the yarn and knitting up this entire piece, and the fact that I finished a week early, I find to be a very big accomplishment. I immediately wrapped it around my shoulders like this and have been just wearing it around the house all day. It's pretty warm outside, but with like air conditioning and whatever, it just kind of balances out my temperature pretty well. I didn't knit this intending it to be a summer garment. I think I'm just finding every excuse I can to wear it because I did just finish it and I want to wear it right away. I did end up running out of yarn at the end, so there is a little border right here where you switch back to a brioche section along this edge. And yeah, I ran out of my handspun yarn for it, but thankfully that is okay because the garter edge is made out of the you know, factory spun yarn. And like I said, it is kind of the perfect size. So far I'm really liking to just drape it over my shoulders like this. It feels like a big cozy cardigan, honestly, and not specifically just a shawl. And then the back has a nice little shape to it, and I like that it doesn't come down way too far, so it looks like I'm not just wearing a blanket. I think it comes down to a really nice point in the back. Of course, in the winter time, I will probably wrap it more around myself, something like this, and that'll make it feel even cozier and like snugglier up closer to my neck and my face. So yeah, I'm excited to see all the different ways that I'll be styling this with different outfits. And I'm very happy that I made it. I was thinking about this the other day. I kind of feel like when you're a knitter or maybe a crocheter too, you get the exclusivity of owning a shawl. I don't know, I just don't really see many hand knit shawls, or not even hand knit, but like machine knit shawls that you can buy in the stores. Is just something that maybe they don't think about. But after I made my first shawl, I quickly just fell in love with this type of garment. I think it's just a really cool, flowy way to wear a hand knit, and just like an extra decorative sweater style, I guess. But all that to say is it's just one of the many reasons why I am happy to be a knitter and making my own garments. I hope you did enjoy this style of video. I know that I for sure had a lot of fun filming it and editing it as well. For my next video, I'm planning on making a part 2 of everything I've ever sewn. And what I want to know from you is, would you like me to include a styling the pieces section, or if you just want to hear strictly about the patterns and the fabrics that I use? So please let me know in the comments if you want styling or not. I hope you all have been having a wonderful summer. I'm gonna get going. I have a date to go paddleboarding, and it's like the first time the sun's been out in a week, so I need to make sure I take full advantage of it. And until then, we'll chat next time. Bye!